Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. What a wonderful warm welcome, despite the cold temperatures today. So, thank you very much for inviting us as well. So, my name's Amanda Craig, Natural England's Director for People and Nature. Doing a double act with my colleague Sunita Welch today, and we're going to be just doing a bit of an introduction around Natural England's work around social inclusion and our work with people. I'm going to start with just a little bit of a high-level overview as to how we've got to where we've kind of got to, and Sunita's going to be talking through a little bit more detail around, particularly around our work around social inclusion. So I just wanted to start really with a little bit more of the big picture in terms of some of the policy landscape as well that we're working with at the moment. So Natural England has always had a role around access and engagement with people since its inception, but the current framing of how we were bringing together people and nature in a really interdependent way really sort of started to come into force in policy terms around 2019, which was when the government commissioned the Glover Review of Protected Landscape Designations, which really started to highlight the growing disconnection between people and nature. And the risk, this highlighted the risk that this might pose for the future of nature as well. This coincided with the creation of Natural England's thinking around being able to pull together a Connecting People with Nature programme as one of the major delivery programmes for the organisation across England. And then stepping into the COVID-19 pandemic, which really highlighted the recognition that nature plays in the health and the resilience of society. And during that time, Natural England was running our regular annual People and Nature survey. We readjusted that in order to be able to pull off monthly statistics as to what was actually happening outdoors in terms of how people were engaging and what that demand was really looking like in terms of what people were looking for close to where they were living. And that became a major piece of evidence demonstrating that level of demand. And that demand has remained high and not returned to pre-pandemic levels. Now there's a whole suite of different evidence products coming out all the time in terms of how people are engaging with nature, which is fabulous to be able to see. But this demand then became a very significant driver for the Treasury as we stepped out of the COVID-19 pandemic to really explore what does access to the outdoors actually mean across government, so from a completely interdisciplinary perspective. And this was a time that government departments really came together in recognition of the aspects of access to the outdoors, what that can bring for society, for economy, for our nature. And that then developed into the launch earlier this year of the Environmental Improvement Plan and the final chapter of that improvement plan, the Beauty Heritage Engagement chapter, which includes a commitment that everyone should be able to have access to green or blue spaces within a 15-minute walk from home. So in terms of Natural England's priorities and what this means for our work at the moment, we're very much focused actually on that work around the Environmental Improvement Plan itself. It has been a significant moment for us, and particularly thinking through the greater focus on what nature can do for people in supporting socio-economic and health benefits. So our approach is very much focused on delivering nature recovery in towns and cities through the green infrastructure framework, through biodiversity net gain, and how we work across sectors, health, education, transport, housing. Secondly, around access to the outdoors, building on that Environmental Improvement Plan commitment around 15 minutes. And what does that mean for the provision of green blue space? Where is it? The quality of it? How do people access it? And finally, around tackling barriers to nature, which is the social inclusion strand of our work, which Sunita is going to talk about in a little bit more detail. Just very, very quickly to give you a flavour of some of the cross-government drivers which have come out of our work to date, really looking at how we actually layer up some of this work in places. Here's just a very quick flavour of some of the headlines across those different government departments, all contributing to multiple outcomes, but very much around placemaking. What does this mean in places? And Natural England's playing quite a strong role in how that comes together. And lots of publications coming out now about the benefits of nature to people. Here's some statistics which we've just pulled together around all of this. But this is being seen in other sectors. These are statistics that other organisations are working on and are pulling out themselves. And this is why there really is a broader interest in nature and how it benefits other sectors. So what can nature to help other sectors in terms of health, sports, arts, education, transport, housing. The last bit I just wanted to touch on, just in terms of how we kind of talk about nature. Nature for us doesn't just mean biodiversity when we're talking about that. For us, it's very much around landscape, heritage, culture, access, and recognising that there are millions of people acting either for or against nature in multiple different ways, and understanding this is very much key to the success of our work. I'm going to hand over to Sunita, who's going to talk in a little bit more depth around our work around social inclusion. Thank you, Sunita.
So, good morning, everybody. Nice to be here. Very pleased to be chatting to everybody, and Amanda's just given a great introduction. I think for those of you possibly who don't know what Natural England does, is we are the government's principal advisor on nature and conservation, but we do all of these other things, and we knit together lots and lots of spaghetti. So when we're talking about inclusion within our organisation, I like to think of it as being a bit inside and out. So we've got 12 area teams, and I'm going to ask Jo to give everybody a wave. So Jo Birch is East Midlands, which is obviously up there on the map on the right, and she's our senior inclusion advisor, and we've got 12 of those, one in each in area teams, which might not be enough, obviously, but there's never enough, is there, in our sector? And they've all got inclusion action plans, and their real key driver is that working with partnerships. But outside, we also work closely with Wildlife and Countryside Link, so that I think the overarching body for countryside organisations. So there's lots of organisations that are country parks involved. And we've done quite a lot of work with them around the state of the sector and why our sector isn't very diverse. So earlier this week, I was at the Communicate conference in Bristol, and it was nearly all women, and then very few visibly diverse people were there as well. But today we've got a bit more of an even spread, but it was really surprising. But when I started out in the sector, there were like no women. I was a countryside warden first. There were no women, and there were certainly no women that looked like me. So progress has been made, but we're working really closely with Wildlife and Countryside Link, and in particular they've taken on a strand of work with us to look at how they can support those smaller organisations who are, very resource short in terms of saying, oh yes, we're going to have somebody who leads on EDI for the whole of our organisation, because actually they've got somebody who's leading on 7 things for the whole of their organisation. We also work with the Youth Hostel Association with a community of practice really called the Outdoor Citizens, and again that's small groups helping them get started. But if you have a look in our inclusion teams, what we're doing on the ground is we're doing some direct delivery, but actually we're building those partnerships and building those the capacity for better decisions and more inclusive processes. So Jo, I'm going to use her because she's here, worked really closely across her area team to provide evidence. So we asked all of our area teams through their inclusion seniors, to do some deep dives into their area. This one is obviously Naughty Elephant Squirt Water. Do you remember that one from when you were a kid? West Midlands, and Chloe over there has done some really good work analysing all the different characteristics of the places, and actually in other spaces where people have much more tech, it can be overlaid with landscape as well to look at that. And they also looked at this is in Kent and Sussex, it's just a nice picture, has areas of higher deprivation, higher health conditions and disability, more ethnic diversity, but also green infrastructure. And we know that Claire Warburton came and spoke to you last year about green infrastructure, and obviously that was launched the same day as the Environment Improvement Plan as it happened. So good synergy there, but layering up and taking all that deep knowledge to make a difference. And last year, when we asked our inclusion seniors, who are you working with? They came back part year and said, 204 other external organisations to deliver our work. And that's really what we're after. We're after that deep embedding Because I've put on the bottom of here is that many people don't have a voice in decision making about nature and nature recovery. I would say the conservation sector has often held on to the we know best, but actually local people, local communities potentially really do know best. I'd be interested to hear, I can't see where you've gone now, how you involved the local community here in developing and restoring this site and how their views were able to be expressed and incorporated. Because we sometimes go out and ask people for their views and then carry on and do whatever it was we were going to do anyway. So, community engagement. And when we think about this, connecting people with nature and being more inclusive, what will be different? There'll be more people connecting with nature closer to where they live. And that's that 15-minute commitment that's in the Environment Improvement Plan. There'll be more of nature and people together. There'll be less conversations about recreational disturbance. There'll be less articles like this one in The Guardian. So I lived in the US for a number of years, and every park you went to had barbecue stands, picnic shelters for large multi-generational inter-community groups to use. I was like, why is all the fuss about a few barbecues in a park in London? But obviously there was a lot of fuss. So there'll be more nature and people together, more communities working together with culturally inclusive spaces. People will have positive experiences. We hear quite a lot about groups not having positive experiences. During the pandemic, I worked for a national park authority, and we took a deep dive, a colleague and I, into Instagram. And there was all this chat about, people from cities are coming in and ruining our national parks. But when you took a deep dive into Instagram, they were still doing all those universal things. I want to be with my family. I want to feel safe. So needing to take those into our actions as we move forward. And we'll have more knowledge. So Natural England we like to describe ourselves as an evidence-based organisation. And so we commission, and I've put share, I've left them on the table over there, we share and use evidence. And so I think when everything comes out later, there'll be links to here. So we did a series of publications about Included Outside that looked at the experiences of certain groups. We've got a connection to nature, some documents about that. And then we've got the People in Nature survey, which Amanda was mentioned earlier, which is really critical to what we know about how people are engaging. But the best bit about some of these things is, and we've been working a little bit with Lottery to look at this, is actually everybody here can use all our data. And it means you don't have to do lots of surveys, because people like Lottery say, oh, it's some data done by Natural England. We're an arm's length body of government. You don't need to go out and do that again. So please come and chat to me. I've got examples of some of these documents with me today, so people can come and have a quick look. And I've just had my 2-minute warning, so I'm slightly ahead of time. But thank you very much for having us. Come and chat to us, because that's what's the most important part. Thank you.